And I want to move on to Kamasutra, Vatsyayan's Kamasutra. And whatever questions you may have in mind regarding Manusmriti, you can write to me, you can email me, you can see some of the videos and other things that I sent you, but I'm available on WhatsApp and I'm available on email, right? And we'll also take up some of these questions which you may have very strong ones or disturbing ones to you in the next 2 hours. Now, you see, just as the Manusmriti, any discussion on Manusmriti kind of revolves too much around just the Varnashram or the caste system. Similarly, in the case of Kamasutra, we have an excessive, unrequired concentration on the sexual postures shown in the Kamasutra, and the general view that Kamasutra is about a way of living in ancient India where sex was free, and many modern intellectuals have kind of created very romantic and misleading ideas about ancient Indian sexuality. And of course, Chicago has the greatest of the Western scholars, Wendy Doniger, who is, who has, like Midas had the touch of gold, Wendy Doniger has the touch of sex in whatever she touches,
Did you get
sexualized.
I know you said that. Did you get to meet her this time?
To
Did
meet
you meet Wendy Doniger?
No. I met her only once in 2012.
Okay.
It was an association of Asian studies meeting, and we had made a panel with 3 speakers on her book, The Hindu, which she had published in 2010. And we had asked her to join the panel and the discussion. And I asked her on the eve of the conference to join, and she refused. She never came. So, well, they don't waste their time with us. We are beneath notice for them. So that's how it is. Anyway, to go ahead with what I was saying, that she has created this whole idea of Indian sexuality as being Victorianized, and modern Indian looking upon his ancestors through Victorian eyes. Now, there is a grain of truth in it, but then the question is, who did this? Indians didn't do this to themselves. This was part of the colonial governance and governance of the mind by the British. And at the same time, classical sexuality had very little connection with modern Western Freudianism or with notions of gender or with notions of sexual freedom. So Kamasutra is really a book which talks about the value of sex as one of the Purusharthas. Doniger's latest book, as you know, is Against Dharma, in which he has pleaded that Vatsyayan was an atheist and he was anti-Manu. So, why is it that these notions are being created? That is essentially to break this unity of Dharma, Artha and Kama. Now, Kamasutra makes it very clear. In fact, Kamasutra is the Shastra which says that there should be a proper balance between Dharma, Artha and Kama. And while you are pursuing one at a given time, you should keep in mind that the other two are not harmed. See, this is exactly the sutra in Kamasutra. Now, of course, Wendy Doniger says that this is only lip service. The real purpose is to subvert dharma and to bring in sexuality to subvert dharma. So if dharma says that you are not allowed to seduce your neighbor's wife, then Kama Sutra is prescribing how to seduce your neighbor's wife. And therefore Kama Sutra is anti-dharmic, and therefore Kama Sutra is written by a follower of Charavak system who does not believe in dharma. So she totally distorts the real notion that there are times when a certain action may be justified for a psychological need. You see, you are looking upon not a blatant rule, thou shalt not commit adultery, and that's the end of it. The Hindu system of morality is not in black and white. Not only does it prescribe apad dharma, that there are certain occasions in which the rule has to be broken in favor of dharma. Like a sannyasi who is not supposed to touch a woman will be required to go and touch or hug a drowning woman in order to save her life. So it is dharmic to save the life of a drowning woman and forego the rule of not touching the woman in a given circumstance. Similarly, it is possible that there are situations when committing adultery or seducing a neighbor's wife may be justified. It may be justified for the mental health of the woman herself. What about the case of a woman whose husband is away for, let's say, last 5 years? Maybe it may restore sanity for her. You see, human conduct is something very delicate, and it cannot be just totally prescribed in terms of black and white. So the whole Indian system of morality is to see how is dharma served at what time in a given situation, not according to a given prescription. Krishna said to Arjuna, now is the time to kill Karna when the wheel of his chariot is submerged in the mud, because this is the time you can kill him, and you should break the law that a Kshatriya is not going to strike one who does not have the relevant weapons, because this man has been practicing adharma in many ways. And when Rama was confronted with Vali, then he could not strike him in the open, because Vali had the advantage of a boon, according to which half the power of the opponent would be coming to him, and so Rama could not have killed Vali face to face. He had to do it. Now, the Hindu system does allow this kind of things in certain circumstances. It does not say that taking an excuse, making an excuse of this leeway, you are going to be adharmic all the time. But Doniger goes to the extent of making the whole situation black and white. So you see, what you are doing is you are really subverting the fine balance between dharma, artha and kama moksha which is being prescribed. That there are times you have to see what to do, where and when, and which purpose to fulfill. Now to come to the world of Kamasutra. You see, let me just quickly go through the contents of Kamasutra. And you can also ask me questions about it as to what is really the Kamasutra interested in, and what does the Kamasutra want from us, and what kind of world Kamasutra portrays, and the world which really existed, for which we have plenty of literary evidence from different classical plays and other poems. Now, at this point, it is important to make note of a very simple fact, that most of these Shastras were not written by a single person at a single time. Unlike, let us say, an Aristotelian text, about which we know that this was written, let's say, 310, something like this. It is sufficient, and by a single person. None of these texts are by a single person. They are by a single tradition. Anuvanshik. They belong to a sampradaya. So Kamasutra, first of all, talks about the predecessors, various predecessors. And we know that there were other Kamasutras or Kamashastras. For instance, Brihaspati had written some Kamasutra. And it seems that Natya Shastra was following that, or rather was aware of that Kamasutra, and not Vatsyayan. So this is a tradition. Vatsyayan is the last of the Acharyas, and he is making use of the different Acharyas who have gone. That's why he has a chapter on the beginnings of Kamasutra and the embellishment of the tradition of Kamasutra, Udbhav, birth and vikas of Kamasutra. Now, in the second chapter, he begins by saying that there must be a balance between dharma, artha and kama. And in that context, he talks about what is dharma, what is artha, and what is kama. And then he also goes on to define that dharma is the highest, the most important. Artha, the next, and kama, the third. That all artha is to be obtained through dharmic means, not through adharmic means. And artha is necessary in order to fulfill your desires. Artha is prosperity, not just money. Means, material means. But material means are not an end, material wealth is not an end in itself. It is for fulfilling desires. So, wealth should be used for fulfilling desires. It's beautiful, it is good, and it is one of the purusharthas. So, as I said earlier, there is no question of looking on sex as something to be distrusted or hated or to be considered as lowly. You see, although the Greeks were very liberal in their sexual life, but all said and done, Greeks did not have a concept of shringar. They looked upon sexuality as a madness, as something that causes a great disturbance. It is beautiful, it is nice, it is something which is an ecstatic experience, like you can read in the poems of the famous Greek poetess Sappho. But all good poems about sexuality, they portray sex as a possession, as a madness. Now that's very different from the Indian attitude. The Indian attitude towards sexuality is that it is the most beautiful, enjoyable, and essential nature of man. The text, which has many verses about what is beautiful in this world, and says women are the most beautiful thing, these verses come from Natya Shastra. I've sent you a link of one of my essays about Shringar, to the group. You'll have to buy it for $1 because I gave the rights to somebody 10 years ago, but it's just $1 or $2. And it's in two parts, it's very, Shringara. And there all the relevant quotations and translations are given. So they talk about how beautiful this life is, how fulfilling this life is, and how Kama is essential to it. Now, in the third chapter, or rather the third part of the first big chapter, Kama Shastra talks about Kama Vidya. That is the art or the science of sexuality. And the first thing he has to say is that everybody should study Kama Shastra. That is essential for everybody, and particularly for women. So this idea that sex education is a very modern Western thing is wrong. Vatsyayan is making it mandatory for women. Now the question would be, how are women going to study? Kama Shastra was not taught in the Agraharas or in places where men went to study under a guru. You see, that was a place of total abstinence and celibacy, brahmacharya. So where would women study? And women didn't go out to institutes of higher learning. So they have to study at home. Whom would they study from? About sexuality, sexual experience, sexual life, how to approach men, how to avoid certain kinds of men, etc., which Kamasutra later talks about. He says they should do it from senior women of the household. So if you have a, what is called a Masi, your mother's sister, mother's younger sister, so very often, they were just a few years elder to you, but they have been married and they know what is sexual life. So you can learn about sexual life from them, or from friends, or from elderly servants of the household, women servants of the household. They can teach you, they can inform you. So you see, it is a society, it is in which talking about sex, learning about sex, getting to know about it was a prescribed thing, and people were encouraged to do it. Women were encouraged to do it. So all women should know about it. Then he takes up the question, do you really need sex education? I mean, animals can also reproduce without any education. And he goes on to tell us that, look, there is one big difference. Animals are dependent upon animal instincts. They don't cross them. They live a life in a cycle. So when they have the mating season, they will mate. So they are bound by their biological, natural, instinctive life. But that's not the case with human beings. So human beings must know what to do when, how to do where. And therefore it is essential for them to understand Kama, the nature of Kama, the nature of sexuality. He prescribes then for women 64 arts. That these are the 64 arts which women should know. Now, very often it is considered that the 64 arts were just some very simple things like making rangoli or dyeing clothes, but that's not true. I will just very, very quickly go through the list of the different 64 arts, or a few of them at least, and then you will see that they require not just some kind of an amateurish understanding of arts or skills, but they are very complicated. Of course, they are very simple ones, like how to design the floor with semi-precious stones, Mani Bhumika Karma, how to make bedding, Shayana Rachanam, how to make musical instruments through water, use of water. You know, like we have Jal Tarang, so how to make instruments, how to make different toys using water, then how to use certain kinds of ways to make people get to know each other, how to make various kinds of mala or garlands, right? Make, what is called hairdos, make various kinds of, then dress, designing of dress. There was a custom in ancient times to cover your ear with various ornamental contraptions. So that was Karana Patra Bhanga. So how to design them, how to manufacture or make various perfumes, right? Gandhayukti, how to make ornaments. And so it goes on, various kinds of it into 64, and music, dance, poetry, then figures of speech, literary exercises, they are all part of it. Like then how to play the veena, how to play the damaru. So these are different arts, 64 arts which women can cultivate. And Kavya Samasya Purti, you know what is Kavya Samasya Purti? That one line is given and you are asked to compose the second line there and then. So these are not all like small little skills, but some of them are very, very complicated skills. In order to accomplish them, you would need a sustained training, years of education. So, yes, Takshaka Karma, that is engraving, and various other things. And one very interesting thing is Mlechita Vikalpa, which means learning a language which is not commonly known, or a language, a kind of a manufactured code language that you should be able to communicate something in it. So now these are the arts, and how are you going to learn? So where would a woman learn? Because she doesn't go to school. Well, at home. So she would have tutors, she would have people who would come to teach her. Now obviously, working class women will not be able to learn because they just have to make two ends meet. It has to be women of leisure or well-to-do women, and Kama Shastra is about that particular class. Kama Shastra is not about people who are all the time engrossed in work or not interested in anything except a very basic living.
Is that written anywhere? Is that said anywhere? Or
Well, it's not said anything because if you say it, then you forbid some people from learning. But I am making this observation because if Kama Shastra prescribes arts, and as you will see later on that arts have a great, great role, then it does presume a class which has sufficient amount of leisure.
the reason I asked is, if it's allowed to be interpreted in an open fashion, right? And different people can interpret it differently, right? Even anti-Hindutvalis can interpret it differently and impose, women's rights issues or things like that. That's why I asked that.
You mean, well, he doesn't forbid, so there is no ground for, no ground for that thing. And then he also says that, okay, it's essential for everybody. So then it is essential for working class. And then everybody, all women should get to know, and at home, and from elder women or women of the house. So that applies to the working class also, obviously. A fisher woman's daughter should also know. Yeah.
Guruji, are you saying that girls didn't used to go to Pathshala or Gurukul at all? I mean, our Sanskriti was so great because of the contributions of women, and if they were not educated like boys, it was very hard to do that.
Well, again we come to the same thing. Women did not go to Gurukula. That is, women did not go to higher education. The working class, Shudra class, did not go for higher education. Only Brahmana, Kshatriya and Vaishya, three classes went. Males went for higher education. Now, for women, therefore, Vatsyayana takes up this problem. How are women going to learn about Kama Shastra? And then he also says that women should be educated. Who is going to educate them? Who is going to give them teaching? It is the husband. After marriage, they should get married. Their education should continue. See? So they were educated at home. But they were educated. If they were forbidden from education totally, then Vatsyayana will not say that there should be 64 arts prescribed. You see? It's a very different picture from the Christian and the Muslim world, where women were not educated as a matter of principle.
But Vatsyayana happened very late in the time. There was a long period before that. Are you saying all those time women didn't go and study? Or meaning whatever?
See, I just told you that Vatsyayana's present text is a late text. But there were so many texts before that. And this custom was part of the Indian social system. If the system of men going to higher education existed and going away from home, then the system that women continue their women after marriage continue their education also was in vogue. Now let us not be under an illusion that women were married early. They were married at the age of 12 or 13. And it was very good, because then they could reproduce 10 children or 14 children, out of which anywhere in the world only 6 or 7 would survive, and 3 or 4 would reach the age of full manhood. The mortality rate was so high. So many women died in childbirth. So if you wanted, if the ancient world was to follow the present day formula, where the woman has her first baby at the age of 28 after having secured a good job and financial independence, then the human race would have come to an end very soon. And you know, some people, some cultures are coming to an end. I hope you are able to decipher what
Especially there is a
indicating.
very, I think especially there's a very close correlation between women's education and reproductive rates. It's a problem in some countries.
We already have a demographic imbalance. Europe is becoming Eurabia. These are some very simple facts which are staring.
Just a clarification, just for my own sake, but also for the group. I guess the difficulty in deciphering this understanding of women's education and role in society comes from our colored notion of what education means, right? I mean, we all look at education as this formal setup where you go to the Gurukul, and you alluded to it. The education could be experiential, could be coming from other sources, and I think that's where there's a disconnect between some of the questions and what we view as educational system. Maybe there was no system, maybe there was an informal system, and that probably is what is the gap.
The system is well defined. Kama Shastra is talking about from whom should women learn, and he talks about from whom they should learn about sexual life, and then the 64 arts obviously would be taught by tutors coming home and teaching.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from question is, I think there is an assumed hierarchy of systems where Gurukul is
Only
put
for
higher
male, yes, exactly.
than the other system or subsystems that you were talking about.
I would put it this way, that it is higher in the sense that it is for higher education. Just as today, let's say a graduate school in present times graduate school is quote unquote higher, okay, but everybody doesn't want to go to a graduate school. Even if you provide free tuition, everybody wouldn't want to go there, not will it work. So it's the same thing. Only Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya would go for higher education. They will go there till the age of, let's say, 18 or 20 for a basic understanding of what was considered as higher education, shastras, different systems, etc. Then they'll be coming back. Some who wanted to do a PhD would stay there till the age of 42. You were given a PhD in ancient India at the age of 42, not before that. And PhD was given only to those who were to teach. It was not given to others, because others were asked to go back and do a job and contribute to society. One who was taught, for whom it was essential to live in the Gurukul till the age of 42, had to learn almost everything under the sun, beginning with grammar till Vedas and this and that, and then he would be asked to open another ashram, Gurukul. You see, try to appreciate the fact that this is a society which did not have anything to splurge.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed is that when it comes to understanding Indian system, we have to get the observer bias out first in order to understand, because we are already, our biases, mind, or sanskar or whatever, is already filtered by so many other filters that we are not able to see. So we need to remove ourselves as an observer from that system and then look back, project on that to see what exactly it is. Because right now, from 200 years of education system that we have had in India, it's completely blurry picture. I mean, I had gone to, I studied at JMU, and I did my own study here, and I said, everything that I learned was a false lie. I mean, that is not even, blurry, it's just absolute lies.
As far as Shastras, right? Study of Shastras is concerned, maybe that's a question, because women, as per certain Rigveda slokas, right? I've forgotten the names, but I know two names that come prominently, Maitri and Gargi. There are supposed to be several women who have authored certain slokas in the Vedas, and it actually starts with the name of the author. And you've got so many different women and men.
Mantras are categorized according to the creators of the mantra.
So there are women also.
And the women,
And,
Rishikas are there, 11
so,
of them.
number one.
Around 11 or 12.
Yeah, so okay, so that's probably, maybe to get that population, maybe there must be a larger student who must be studying and to reach to the level of who can create. I'm sure that there must
I
be.
would put it this way. You see, we must always understand that in any society, there is a norm, a general set of behavior, and then there are exceptions. Now, Rishikas are obviously exceptions. Rishikas must have belonged to some Rishikuls, their parents, their husbands, their must be learned people. And out of them, some Rishikas were born who gave the mantras. And therefore, if the mantras were good, if the mantras were authentic, then they were made part of the recension. They could not be set aside because they were spoken by a female. But let us not presume that on the basis of Maitri and Gargi, all women in Vedic times were given higher education. You see, that's the other extreme.
Yeah, no, but we don't have any evidence to say that they were denied education also, right? Do we?
No. Well, I would put it this way, that if you are in a Vedic family, then by the age of 11 or 12, whether a woman or a man, you have taken the essential education. You are listening to mantrochar the moment you are born. You see, the minute you are doing, now this is not something which I am just imagining. You see, even now, in the family of musicians or music lovers like myself, when a child is born, then the first sound they want the child to hear is Saregama Padhani. Even I put Saregama Padhani into the ear of both my sons as soon as they came out of the labor room. And the doctor said, "What are you doing?" I said, "No, let me do it first." Now, and then of course later on I used to play classical music for them, for 10 hours a day. And that's because I was listening to it 10 hours a day, or I was playing 5 hours a day. So same with somebody who belonged to a highly educated Brahmin family, a boy or a girl by the age of 12 would be highly educated in the Vedic lore. And some of them would start speaking mantras.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
See, I think the truth is somewhere in between. The Vedic period, especially Rig Vedic period, both with regard to Varna and with regard to men, women, it looks like it was much more fluid than in the later period, especially the post-Brahmana period. It became much more patriarchal, and both in terms of gender and in terms of caste. It became less fluid. And that became even more so after the Muslim period.
After invasions.
After the Muslim period.
Yeah,
But then there were exceptions, even late period. You have like Mandana Mishra's wife.
Yeah.
See,
All the time.
she's very learned Shastras. Shankara had to argue with her.
Yeah.
So the exceptions were there right till late. But
See, the
the
Vedic
general
period-
consensus is the Rig Vedic
The
period
Vedic
especially
period
was much more.
is not a highly urbanized period. It's not a highly urbanized period till we come to the Harappan.
Low battery.
Just 2 quick points. So, some of the notions that we are talking are anachronistic. Because they exist today, we cannot back project those notions of ideas. For example, secularism